All right, welcome back to the Retro Cult. I am Chuck again here with Mac. Mac, what's been going on, man?
Well, nothing much. It's been a good week. The weather has kind of moderated a little bit. It's been really cold, but after our big blizzard last weekend, it's been a nice week. Spent some time just working on besides work, actual work. Spent some time working on a few projects I've got going on, personal projects like I've started doing the initial design for my Uncanny Stories website that I'm working on, trying to have so the whole site has like a pulp fiction kind of vibe to it. So I've been doing some work on that this week. Other than that, haven't had a chance to really get out of the house and hunt for anything. Yesterday was like, my wife's been sick all week, and so yesterday was the first day I actually got a chance to get out of the house.
Yeah, we went to a vintage market in Winston. That was like the big thing I had for Grant. And we showed up to that, and honestly, I doubt that I go to another one of those. Like, $2 and $300 pairs of jeans and 120
Oh,
t-shirts. It was
oh,
just like, that's a bummer, man. Like I
yeah.
just can't deal with that. We ended up at the Lost in Time there in Winston,
Is that
and,
where you found the Advanced Comics,
it is, yeah.
catalog? I am so glad you sent those to me 'cause, that is just a little backstory on that, because it's actually kind of in the news right now, Diamond Comics, which has been essentially the sole comic distributor from since the late '90s through about 2020, when the pandemic hit. They had been kinda had a monopoly on comic book, distribution for comic shops, and things really went wrong during um they kinda went into hibernation mode during the pandemic, and, comic shops just couldn't survive that, and that's why now you had 2 other distributors kinda pop up to distribute Marvel and DC and other major publishers. Well, and then just last year, Diamond filed for bankruptcy. There's a big controversy, just a lot of shady stuff going on there. But back in the day, back in the '80s and early '90s, they weren't the only game in town. The other big distributor was Capital City Comics Distribution out of Madison, Wisconsin. And I was working in the late '90s at a place called Carolina Comics and Collectibles, and they were the distributor that he went with because they offered slightly better rates on stuff. They offered some benefits that Diamond didn't offer at the time. So that's how I'm familiar with them. When I opened Rocket Comics, my first distributor was Capital City. I actually really liked it. They didn't have a warehouse in the area, which that was one thing Diamond did have going, is they had a warehouse in Charlotte, North Carolina. So even though things were shipped, like there was New Comic Book Day back then, which was on a Friday instead of Wednesday, but you always had your stuff on time, but it was sometimes convenient to be able to drive to the warehouse and get things yourself rather than depending on UPS or FedEx. And uh, so I when you sent those, I was like, "Oh, those are real blasts from the past because that's their version of previews, which was Diamond's big catalog, and so I am definitely gonna plan on doing some flip through videos with those.
Yeah,
And
I'm
it
looking
it
forward
seems
to
like
getting 'em
they're
to
all
you.
early '90s too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
early mid-90s, yeah, I don't think there
Yeah.
was a whole lot over 95 that I remember. I'd have to go
Mhm.
back and look to be specific, but yeah, make that's exciting, man.
Yeah, yeah.
Um
That just as soon as you sent me that picture, I was like, "Oh, yeah, I definitely want both of that." You sent me a picture of 2 of them, but then when you said there were 8 of them, I'm like, "I just for a buck each, yeah, I'll take them all."
Well, the bad thing about the first that I sent you, that's actually the front and the back of one.
Oh, that's only 1. Oh, I
Y
get it, I get it. Got
so
it.
that's only one of them. So, yeah, good luck picking which side you wanna display.
Oh, well, it's not even a display thing. I really just wanna do a video flipping through,
Okay.
like a back I know LGR does that quite a bit with old CompUSA catalogs or, Best Buy catalogs that he'll find from the '90s where and I know it sounds totally ridiculous. I think you've done one with a Brindle's catalog, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. It sounds ridiculous when you say it out loud, but it is just a blast just watching someone just flip through one of those old catalogs and just remember, what it was like back in the day flipping through one of those. We've talked about it a ton. If I can find Sears Christmas wish books from any time between 77 and about 89, I would take any one I
Right,
could get, and
tickle.
I would do a whole video
Here's
just
where
going
it's
through the toy catalog.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Cassandra was we were digging through of course, we're in Keymaster's spot back there, which is probably one of the best places in Winston, and
I love Keymasters, I need to get
yeah.
over there more, yeah.
Well, we were digging through the dollar box, and she found, I mean, a massive run of GI Joes, and it was
Oh.
huge. And so they weren't in great shape. I mean, they're not even in dollar shape. And so I was like, "Well, just send him a message on Instagram." She's like, "Really?" I'm like, "Yeah." And so she hit him up on Instagram, and he made her a really good deal, on those, which I thought was pretty awesome. And so, yeah, I mean, she bought way more than any of us bought that day. So, but it was exciting. Yeah, that's a great place, man. You never know what you're gonna find, and he's expanded since you've been there.
Oh,
He has,
really?
yeah, he has that entire back room now. Um, which is nice. He's got a lot more places to put things.
Yeah, that's exciting, I'll have to get over there, I'll have to get over there.
Man, maybe when we get
Maybe
together, we
next
can swing by
weekend
there.
when we get
Yeah.
together, we can go over there before.
Yeah, I wouldn't be upset about that. I think that would be good. All right, man. Well, I think we should dive in because I'm looking at all my notes and I'm afraid I mean, I don't know how deep we're going to get into this, but I don't want to not give it the appropriate amount of time as we go through that first episode of Space 1999.
Yeah,
Because
so
I'd never watched it before, so I am excited to talk about it.
yeah, well, I think this is a great I'm excited about, kinda, most of our podcast up to this point of us just been talking about general memories and things that we're doing, and, I think this is exciting. I'm excited about this to just let's discuss these, old shows that we remember and love, and if people like it, we'll keep doing 'em. I'm excited to start with Breakaway, the first episode. Space 1999, just for disclaimer, and is one of my favorite science fiction TV shows of all time. Uh, and so I really, you know, miss the show. I'm kind of two minds. The whole question of what shows need a remake or an update, and Space 1999 consistently comes up as, "Oh, this show should be updated, modernized," and I'll be honest, I hope they never do. I just love it the way it is. It's a time capsule of its time. Even the title, I mean, 1999 has already passed, so
So
let's yeah,
you wouldn't want them to do the 2099 that's been briefly mentioned?
I would not want them
Okay.
to do it, especially with Jerry Anderson being deceased. Uh I'll just put it this way, there have been a lot of properties I love over the past 10 years that have been updated and modernized, and not to be too much of an old curmudgeon about it, I hate them. I hate it. Most time, I think they miss the point, or, in a lot of I'll just say in some cases, there have been properties that have been updated for the modern audience, I'm using air quotes there, where you can tell the people involved in the show don't even really they don't like the property that they're remaking. They're cosplaying it, or they're putting this skin over the thing that they actually wanna do, and I don't like that. And
Yeah.
so I hope they never remake, Space 1999.
Okay. I mean, hey, that's definitely valid. Well, I guess for me, I mean, let's just start at the very beginning. The intro music.
Yes,
Um,
it has one of the most banging theme songs for
I
any TV show ever,
I don't
in
I
my
mean,
opinion.
it's so weird. I almost wish they'd have picked one type or the other, because like, when the spaceship blows up and it changes into, like, the '70s
funky disco
Yeah,
vibe, yeah.
yeah, it's like that's awesome, but then the symphony stuff is really good too, and it's just so weird. It definitely sets it apart from any other theme song that I think I've ever heard, because it's just very unique in the
Well,
way that it does that.
and they did something which I'm sure other shows may have done it before them, but Space 1999 is the first show where it I realized that where they actually give you previews of what's coming in the episode during the opening credits. You just get the flashes of things that are gonna happen in this episode. I thought that was a neat way to handle that. I remember older shows from the '60s that would say they literally would have an "in this episode," and then show you scenes of what's gonna happen. I thought the way Space 1999 handled it in the opening credits was really cool, and I love that theme song. I guess I get your point. I actually think that those 2 genres of music they marry together really well for a single opening theme song for a show. Cause yeah, you get that big orchestral build up, almost like and we can talk about this later. Clearly, Space 1999, the visual look of it, the feel of it, was heavily inspired by Stanley Kubrick's, 2000: A Space Odyssey. I don't know if you've ever seen that movie, but, it's very clearly inspired by that for the look and feel. I think that's why they use that orchestral buildup. It's the same music. It's a very similar vibe to the scene in 2000: A Space or 2001. I said 2000. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Um, there's that famous scene with the ape men and the monolith, and it's a song called I think it's called "Thus Spake Zarathustra," and it's that dun 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 dun. That's that famous piece of music, and that's clearly what they're going for, I think, in that opening build up to right before the eagle crashes and explodes, and then it is like you're in a disco club.
It was definitely something. I remember you mentioned that, I can't wait to hear what you think about the theme song, and I was like, now I get it. That is extremely different.
It's unique. I'll give it that. Whether you love it or hate it, it's unique. Like they took they just went for it and they, it times well with once it gets into that disco mode, you start getting the shots of things that are going to happen in this episode and they're really fast and flashy. But then it goes kind of back into the orchestral
Yeah, I mean, and, I don't wanna jump too far ahead, but the the music in the entire TV show,
again.
is something that it's really neat, and I don't notice this in a lot of shows, but I think they really made an emphasis to have music that emphasized, the mood of the scenes.
Uh-huh.
And I thought they did a great job with that. If something was very serious, you had this very serious orchestral music playing. And if it was something that was very exciting or action packed, the music changed up very differently. I think they nailed the music in the TV show,
Uh-huh.
which I thought was pretty awesome. So yeah, I thought that the beginning of it was great and had me, set up to watch the show.
Oh yeah, I like I said, the show's clearly made in the '70s. I mean, this episode aired in 1973 originally. Um, it's I oh, I'm sorry, 1975, is when it aired, originally. Called UFO, and in the 2nd or 3rd season of that, it was actually the action was gonna move off Earth, and they were gonna be on a moon base. But the show got canceled before that season could go, and so he kind of reworked that idea, and it became Space 1999.
So just a technical glitch. I don't know what happened. somehow the it was recording and then it stopped recording, and it stopped back when we were talking about the show started in 75.
Okay.
I don't know what happened there. I've hit recording again. We're back to recording. I don't know that there's anything that we really need to go back and restate, but just so people understand, if they listen to this, and it seems like it goes from you talking and then like I just jump in. I've never had the thing stop recording like that before. It's never been an issue. I'm glad I was looking at the screen when that happened, because I would hate to have recorded for another 45 minutes.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you were talking about the color beige, and we may have missed, and if we did, we may have missed a bunch of the stuff about how there was, you called it cross pollination, great term, between Star Trek and Star Wars and Space 1999, and there were ideas borrowed back and forth. And you mentioned the color beige. There's a lot of beige in this show.
Yeah, and
Um,
yeah. Go ahead with what you were gonna say. Yeah, I got.
yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at how sterile things look now in a lot of places, if you look at McDonald's and Pizza Hut and what they tried to do to Cracker Barrel there for a little
Yeah.
bit, and Taco Bell's and Wendy's, and how the interiors have changed. They in 1999 certainly was not colorless. It was very colorful in the 90s. So I mean, I think they were a little off, but like the sterile colors is definitely something that is very futuristic. And I don't think they weren't wrong about that.
No, well, and I think that's what they were going for. Again, if you look at the sets, especially, I will tell you this, especially if we move through doing episodes from the entire first season and then the second season. The second season is like a completely different beast from this show. I think I've mentioned it before when we've talked about the show. Season one, they were literally trying to do a very serious, realistic to a degree. It's still science fiction, but they're trying to make it feel realistic. That's why I really appreciated that article you sent me talking where the guy's going through the design of Moonbase Alpha and going, yeah, this is actually really accurate to what we think a real moon base would have to be, how it would actually be built.
Yeah, that article is awesome. We'll have to. I don't know if I can figure out how to do that. I'll have to link that in the show notes or something.
I'll share it, and on YouTube I will link it in the description too. I'll link that article because that is a great article. But yeah, they were trying to make a show that looked futuristic, realistic. This is and Moonbase Alpha is a military installation. Yeah. Just to give a little background on, I guess, the in-world lore. At this stage, Earth is a united, single united government. So it's like Moonbase Alpha is not operated by the United States or Russia or whatever. It's operated by Earth. Don't really, when I rewatch the show, I don't believe they ever give it a name. So it's not like the Federation or or it's just the government. It's just Earth. Or I know that the base itself was built by what's called the World Space Commission, but that's kind of the NASA of that universe's world government. Anyway, so it's a united Earth, but it's a military installation. Um, and one of its primary functions is to store nuclear waste, because that, of course, back in the 70s, that was a, a big concern about, nuclear, all the hand wringing over, nuclear waste and stuff. And so it's actually, that's kind of one of the driving plot points to what sets everything in motion for the entire series is these nuclear storage sites that are on the moon. But it's still, they're there for other reasons too, exploration. It's easier to, if you once you can get things into space, it's much easier to launch spacecraft, from the moon than from Earth, because of gravity and everything. So, but it's an actual futuristic society, but I feel like completely believable. And considering that the show's made in 75, so you're only talking about a a 24-year gap between when the show originally came out and the year it's supposed to be representing. I think they did a pretty good job of like this was a plausible what what a plausible future moon base might look like and what our technology would be like the ships in the show, like the Eagle transporters. Those are iconic. Even if you've never seen the show, you've probably seen this space vehicle, but they look realistic. They make sense. The way they work, it makes sense.
Yeah, see, I was under a misconception before I'd ever seen the show, that the Eagle was like this, almost like the Millennium Falcon, like one ship. There was only
Oh
one of
no,
them.
yeah, yeah,
Like
no.
they've got like hundreds of these things because they crash like 12 every time I turn around.
Yeah. Well, and the Eagle is essentially their space. Think of it like a Jeep in that it is
Yeah,
because one of the cool things and the toy that Mattel made in the 70s reflected this is that the center module, the frame of the Eagle is essentially just a big metal lattice work, and you could actually pick up any number of modules to do different things. Like the one that you most often see, the standard Eagle, the module in the middle is just like a crew compartment. So those are just for transporting large numbers of people. So it basically turns the Eagle into a airliner, but then you could have a different module that could be and I think you even see one in the show where the module in the middle just has it's for lifting heavy things. So it basically has cables that lower, and you attach it to whatever you're trying to pick up, and you pick it. So actually, not a Jeep. Better analogy for the Eagle. They're helicopters. That's what
oh
they are.
yeah,
They're
that
helicopters,
yeah.
and you don't see them very often. I think you only see them. I think you see them at the beginning of the. You see them a little bit in the first episode. I don't recall any episodes that feature them, but they also have a fighter version of it called the Hawk, and it looks very much. But that's the thing. All the technology makes sense, and uh, the Hawk fighter still has that Space 1999 Eagle look to it, where you can say, "Oh, this was definitely built by the same people who built this thing." But yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, that part was. I mean, I just wasn't ready for that.
yep,
So I do have in my notes here, about the Eagles, like the sound effects,
mm-hmm,
with the Eagles. Let me try to find them, make sure I get that right. Aerosol cans for the Eagle jet engines,
yeah, yeah.
which I thought was pretty. And so, like, when you really are listening for it, you can almost hear them like blowing that air into a microphone, like, a different way. So I thought that was really unique because the sound effects were awesome.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, yeah. Well, and uh, I, in general, science fiction sound effects, I love hearing how they figured out how to make this unique sound. And so, yeah, the aerosol cans for because you think about it. I mean, technically, you're not going to hear anything in space, but that's kind of boring. Is if you have a whole scene with no sound. So I always give sci-fi shows a pass on sound effects, and I love good sound effects. And yeah, the sound of the eagles taking off, flying, just sounds really good.
and like a lot of their, I was just reading a little bit about it on some different websites. The synthesizer that they use to do a majority of their sound effects, which was also pretty popular with lots of other shows back in that time. I would love to. I mean, I don't know that I necessarily want one of those synthesizers, but I would love to see one and mess around with it just to see the sounds that it makes, to see if I recognize any patterns or sounds that are, like, oh, I remember that from this show, or that sounds very similar to this show. I think that would be a lot of fun, to do. But yeah, it was.
It's not a, is it? It's not a theremin, is it? Is that the?
No, it's not a Fairman. It's
Okay.
it's it's a APR Odyssey synthesizer. I got pretty deep in some of this stuff,
No, you
when I
did.
was.
Wow, you took a deep dive into
Yeah,
that.
I really got just kept on digging and looking into things, because I just didn't know, um, you know
how long we would be talking about the show, and I just wanted to learn a little bit more. And honestly, like the more that I dug into the show and looked up things and certain characters, it made the show more interesting. And it when you start to put more time into it, you're invested in the show a little bit more as opposed to just sitting down and watching.
Are you planning on watching the rest of the show? Or
So I mean, I've watched. I don't even know what episode I've got through. It's not the first season. I have not watched the other episodes as intently as I did the first one, so that we could sit and talk about it.
oh yeah, yeah.
I did think that and I don't even know what you would call it, like their door keys that they had to use, where they would have to take it off their belts and push and point at the door. But it was also, I think it's the same thing that they FaceTime. Yeah, yeah. That was pretty unique.
I love the feel of the technology because it I can't remember the name of the device. It actually does have a name, but yeah, it's essentially their communicator but it does more than that. Like you said, it's also for door locks. It's kind of like a security device, but they also talk. I mean, it gives you full video. I
Yeah,
mean, you essentially FaceTime on this thing on
that's
a
I
little
actually.
like 2-inch screen.
I have that word FaceTiming. Like I have that in my notes on little mini black and white TVs. I thought that was awesome, though.
Oh,
I thought that was really
it
neat.
is, and I love the way if you notice the columns throughout Moonbase Alpha, they're not just there holding up the ceiling, but they all usually have a small black and white TV screen on each side,
Yeah,
and there's usually buttons. It's like somehow part of the computer interface or serving some purpose with that. But yeah, and because then I know that like then you have station wide announcements, and you'll see that the same picture and audio playing from all of those. It made sense. Like you're like, okay, this feels like real technology that
yeah,
people would be using, and it didn't. It wasn't out of bounds for that to be 70s technology, but it certainly felt like, oh, this is a logical. Now they couldn't have imagined, flat panels and LCD screens and all of that at the time, but the technology. It's not like watching old episodes of uh, Star Trek: The Original Series, which again, I'm not dissing on Star Trek. I love the original series. That's my favorite Star Trek. But the technology in that show is, you know, it's the 70s. It feels or the 60s. I mean, it feels like you're like, oh, okay, yeah. I mean, it doesn't hold up quite as well. Whereas I can still watch Space 1999 and look at it feels antiquated because they're using CRTs rather than LCDs. The screens are generally small and things like that, but it actually doesn't feel like completely out of date.
yeah, yeah. I got a kick out of the one scene when the Commander Koenig is arguing with Simmons, and like he's on one side of the column, and he like steps around to the other side and keeps arguing with him on the TV.
Yeah.
I was like, that was. I mean, it was just funny to me. It's like
Yeah,
no matter where you go, you're going to be arguing with the same guy.
yeah, I don't know why, but I always that scene kind of makes me laugh. It doesn't play out the same way, but I always think about the scene from Airplane 2 where William Shatner's character is talking to his underling on a screen, or you think it's a screen, and he's like, "Sir, you better come to the command center. I'll be right there." And literally the door slides open. He was just behind the door looking through a window the whole
Well,
time.
that actually happened in this episode. He's talking to Dr. Russell in his communicator.
Okay,
Yeah, and like the door opens and he's like standing right there.
but he wasn't
Yeah.
his communicator
He
thing.
was on the communicator talking to her, and she said something, and he opens the door. He's like right there.
Yeah.
So in the show, who was your favorite character?
Commander Koenig is my favorite character. With, I would say, Alan Tate the who's the pilot. He's kind of the
Yep.
action hero guy. He's the one. When I was a kid, he was my favorite because he's the
Okay.
action guy. Like he's the guy you want to be. Like when you're playing with your Mattel,
Oh yeah.
Eagle transporter. I mean, you're Alan Tate, and he was Australian. He had a cool Australian accent.
Yeah.
Um, so that was my favorite. But as I've rewatched it as an adult, Commander Koenig is my favorite character because, um, he was played by oh god,
Landau. Martin
Martin
Landau.
Landau. He's played by Martin Landau, who's just an amazing actor. He later went on to play um, Bela Lugosi in the uh, Tim Burton Ed Wood movie,
Yep.
and he was just amazing in that. But he was great, and that as an adult rewatching him, like again, not to throw too many things on the show that probably aren't there. This is just probably my observation as a fan of TV sci-fi in general. He- Commander Koenig is the intermediate development of what we see as like a strong commanding character between James T. Kirk in the original series and Jean-Luc Picard in the Next Generation. He's
I do.
he's
Yeah, I
got
have some
aspects of
Picard
both of
references.
them. He's got aspects of both of them, but he's still more action oriented when he needs to be, kind of like James Kirk.
Yeah, when he jumped in the ship, I was like, "Whoa, holy cow!
Yeah,
That's crazy that he just went out there."
yeah.
I'll be honest with you, like, and again, I'm not super deep into the show, and looking at like IMDb and stuff, I'm afraid he's not going to be in the second season. But I love Professor Bergman.
Professor Bergman, he's not in the second season. They got
Oh my
rid of him.
god,
I
he's
told
so
you
cool.
the second season, not that it's terrible, but it is definitely not. Season one is the standout, and I wish there wasn't the studio interference that required the changes for season two. Because yeah, Victor Bergman is an amazing character, and the actor who played him, um, let's see, Barry
Yep.
Morse, who played him. I've seen interviews with him where later in his life, because I think he lived like to be 90. I think he was a pretty old guy. Uh, yeah, he was 89 when he passed away in 2008. But I've seen interviews with him where he talks about people would still come up to him recognizing him and saying, "Oh, I loved you as Professor Bergman on Space 1999." Even though the guy's a classically trained Shakespearean actor, he's done tons of other things, and but that seems to be the role. Even though he's only this one season sci-fi show, he still said the number one thing he gets when people see him and recognize him is Professor Bergman, and he said he always feels so gratified by that, and I love hearing that from actors who are like they're not ashamed of this thing they did. They still love it. Whereas you hear, so many especially I guess old school actors sometimes are kind of ashamed of things they did. Like I know that Alec Guinness was not proud of his work as Obi-Wan Kenobi in the Star Wars trilogy and didn't really, like talking about it when people would bring it up. And I never understood that. I'm like, look, if you're in this to entertain people, to inspire people, to bring people joy, and if they took away something that lasts a lifetime with them, yeah, just be thankful for that. And Barry Morse always had that attitude, in that when people would come up and recognize him and ask him about questions about Space 1999, he was not ashamed to talk because, and you can tell it in his acting. He brings it every time he's on screen.
Oh no, man! I absolutely love his character. And I had a terrible feeling. I don't, and I this was before I even jumped on IMDb. I was like, he may not make it. I was like, this is going to make me mad. And then I looked it up. I was like, okay, it sounds like he's in all of season one.
He's in all of season one, and it's not that he dies or anything. It's just that they reworked the show for season two.
Yeah,
He's one of those he got the Chuck Cunningham treatment. You know, he went upstairs and never came
Yeah,
down
never
again.
came back downstairs again. Yeah.
He
So
just
am I
disappeared.
am I to assume that the Space 1899 episode I sent you is probably from season two?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay. All right.
The other guy, uh, because they felt like they needed a younger. They introduced that new character who's I forget the character's name. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of season two, but he's the action hero character, and
Yeah.
he's American, and he is real American. Like John Koenig is an American in the lore of the show. He's from America, but he's a thoughtful he's a thoughtful, rational, he's a leader. He's a really the new guy they introduced was he's a hothead. He's your again, I don't want to make this comparison as a diss towards Star Trek, but he's the Captain Kirk kind of mold of
Yeah.
character. And I love Captain Kirk, don't get me wrong, but you know, the character has to fit into the environment of the story, and I guess you could argue he does. But again, season one's great. Season two, I can see, the show ended after season two. I would argue that it never ceases to amaze me. Studios come in and go, this show is. It actually has met with moderate success. Season one was actually a fairly good rating success, but it was expensive. It was expensive to make, and of course they're like, okay, well, let's cut the budget, rework it. We need to appeal to American audiences, so we got to throw in the hothead American who's the cowboy essentially, and I'm
Okay.
like, you don't have to do that. I love the show, and I think over time you can see where that logic didn't work. I mean, the show got canceled because ratings fell in the second season, and I think you can see it that as like other people that I have known who also like Space 1999, they always prefer season one to season two. Season two feels like a different show. It's a drop off there. It's not, for lack of a better word, it's not as cerebral as season one. And I'm going to say there are some episodes of season one that you could make an argument they might be too cerebral. There's one in particular that actually stars. He's been in a lot of stuff. His name McShane, I think is his last name. I remember him from Deadwood. He was the bartender in Deadwood. I can't
Okay.
remember his name now, but there's it's a whole episode about mental instability caused by that there is an alien influence involved, and it is a weird episode. Like a lot of Dutch angles and weird filming, and I'll be honest, it's got some action, especially near the end, but it's a real, I guess, thinker would be the word, in that it's trying to make have it's trying to make a discussion about essentially mental illness, especially in a scenario where like a lot of it is brought on dealing with the fact that, hey, we're literally on a runaway moon and are never going to make it back to Earth, and how do
Yeah,
people
that was
deal with that?
yeah, that was a big shock for the. I mean, I guess you have to set up the show, obviously, but that was something that I was not quite ready for.
Yeah.
And again, going in blind, I think that was great. I didn't read anything about it. I didn't want to hear anything. I just went in like first time watching the show, and then yeah, watching the video feed from Mars as the moon is like moving away from Earth was wild.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I mean,
I la-
again, they were clearly trying to make a realistic science fiction show up to a point, in the fact that if you can get around the fact that the overarching premise of this is, hey, what if all the nuclear waste on the moon exploded and turned into a giant rocket, and it just basically turned the moon into a spaceship?
Yeah.
Okay, well, if you can accept that premise, everything else is going to make sense in this show. If you
Well, I
can't
mean,
get past that premise, you're not. This isn't the show for you.
that's a lot of shows, though. I mean, you gotta buy into the reality of whatever
Yeah.
it is they're trying to sell you. I mean, Breaking Bad. If can you buy into the fact that a teacher would get so upset that he started making drugs? Sure, I can buy into that.
Yep.
It just depends on if that's your thing or not, and how well they write the show. I hate that season two seems to be so different, and I wonder. And again, I've not looked anything to season two. I wonder if Jerry Anderson, was there something that happened where he lost? Did he lose like creative control of the show, or what happened that would cause season two to be so drastically different? Because it seems like he was pretty hands on with a lot of the things that he did.
I wouldn't say he lost. Yeah, to a degree, he lost creative control. He didn't lose complete creative control. He was still involved in the show, but the entire reason that Space 1999 existed as it was he had worked exclusively on shows in the UK, mainly and a lot of his shows were produced by ITV, which was their independent television, so it's not part of the BBC. Um, and so budgets on everything he always did were always super tight. This is an independent television station that's mainly catering to a British audience. Some shows would make their way over to the United States through public television. I think that's where I first saw Thunderbirds, was on PBS. But they were all they were very British. They were very British shows. Well, Space 1999 was a joint venture with ITV, and I forget the name. I don't remember the name of the American production company, but this was a joint venture where they were actually going to aim, like, it was going to be released primarily in the United States. It was really targeted at America. That's why, to be frank, that's why Martin Landau is Commander Koenig. He's an American. The main character is an American. Even though the entire cast is very diverse from different parts of the earth, but this was really aimed at American um, audiences. And that's really, I think, the seeds of destruction for this show, because when he had been working exclusively as in British broadcasting for a British audience, he had good relationships with ITV. They basically let him, as long as the viewer numbers stayed where they wanted them to be, they let him do whatever he wanted to. Whereas once they did Space 1999, where it's really aimed at an American audience primarily, rather than a British one, and he's dealing with another studio now. It's not just ITV involved, it's the American side of the equation. And of course, they're like, all right, well, we want this to be, then, like, even though the show is doing what they would have considered in the UK, they would have considered the numbers the show's getting astronomical. Like, this would have been the number one show, like, in the UK. But here they're just like, it's middle of the pack, kind of ratings. And for the money they're investing in these episodes, which at the time I think they were some of the most expensive sci-fi TV show episodes ever filmed. Of course,
Yeah, I saw some of the prices and money they were putting into
yeah,
the
and if you
show, at least for
convert those
first
to
season.
like 75,
Wow.
yeah, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, they were putting
Um,
some money in.
and so they're of course like, okay, we got to get the numbers up. And unfortunately, what that means, instead of letting the show, and that's always, I think, a problem with TV. I think it's continuing in streaming too, to a degree, is that rather than letting the show find its audience, like, one of the happy examples of this is Star Trek: The Next Generation. I don't know, if you've ever watched, like, Star Trek: The Next Generation season 1 and 2. They're terrible. It's terrible. I mean, why this show made it past season 2, I have no idea, other than it already had a kind of a built-in fan base, and that allowed them to give them time to find their audience. And then by season 3, it starts getting awesome. Um, Unfortunately, with Space 1999 being an unknown property, if they had just kept the same work from season 1 to season 2, the same quality, I think the show would have found its audience and might have gone on for even more seasons. But it's new. It doesn't have a built-in fan base, so the studio gets involved. We're investing a lot of money in every one of these episodes. You know, put a cowboy in it. You make it exciting. Stop talking sci-fi all the time.
Yeah.
Basically, you know, basically what they did. Uh, I'm afraid the listeners are going to get the wrong idea. It sounds like I'm throwing shade at Star Trek all the time, and my wife will tell you nobody loves Star Trek more than me.
No, you're the biggest Star
Yeah.
Trek fan I know.
But basically, the problem between season 1 and 2 is they said make it Star Trek, and he was his hand was forced to do it. That's why I say no. I don't think he lost complete creative control, but he definitely was pressured into, you got to do this, make it Star Trek essentially, and because season 2 has a much more monster of the week. Literally,
Yep.
the moon is. They throw out the whole. In season 1, they deal with the difficulties. Like, what is the difficulties besides the fact of the moon just breaking up if all those explosions happen? But let's assume that the moon does hold together, turns into essentially a giant spaceship that you cannot control. It's just on its way out into deep space. Um, what are the problems of dealing with that? Okay, well, people are going to start losing their marbles when they realize the situation they're in. So you got to hold them together. Uh, you got to make sure all your equipment still works, and you have to try to find a place. If you can get off of this rock, you got to at some point. So, well, in season 2, it's much more of a, oh, the moon is now passing by this planet. Let's shoot some eagles over there and go see what. Oh, there's an evil wizard over here. And that's the episode that week. And then we're going to escape back to the moon, which is going to continue on its way. They literally treat the moon much more like a spaceship.
I was getting ready to say, it
The
sounds
second
more like a
episode.
spaceship.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it became basically the moon becomes, the USS Moon at that point,
I hear
and
you.
it's a spaceship. And so I think that's the biggest letdown. Now, that being said, there are episodes of season 2 that are great. They're actually really good. I'm not trying to say every episode is bad. The overall theme and feel of the show is changes between 1 and 2, and I would say it's not for the better.
I got you. Yeah, I was looking at the guy who took over in the second season actually wrote for some Star Trek episodes as well, right?
Yes, he did.
Okay, so that would, I mean, it makes sense that he would have that lean, especially if that's what the studio is asking him to do,
Yep.
is to make it more like that. I do know, like you mentioned that you thought that Commander Koenig had some Picard like tendencies
got a little
and
bit
Kirk
of both,
tendencies.
yeah.
Yeah. Every time he would go into his office, it really did remind me a lot of Picard's office. Obviously,
Yeah.
very, very different colors. But I was blown away when, like, the entire wall of his office opened up, and it was almost like he was like 6 feet away from the commander's chair. Like,
Yeah.
that was really wild to see, and I wasn't expecting that. In the first episode, so it kind of gave me a different vibe after that. It's like, oh, okay, so this is actually not too far away from everyone else. Where
it's kind of like Picard's ready room, which was right off of the bridge.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
which was, and I thought that was really neat. I know we haven't talked about Dr. Russell a lot, and I'll be honest, and maybe it's a first episode thing. I don't know, just not fond of her so far.
Dr. Russell is a interesting character. She's a good character. A little back, behind the scenes thing. She was also Barbara Bain was Martin Landau's wife at the time, and I want to say I think that they separated and got divorced during the run of this show. Don't know that the two things are connected in any way, but
Okay.
yeah,
If that's the case, that line in the first episode of "I didn't know you cared" would be really hilarious.
yeah. But no, they were married at the time. But yeah, Doctor Russell is one of those characters. She comes more into her own as the show progresses. Um, she is in season two. She does survive the jump to season two. Um, and I would say she becomes much more. That's another thing about season two. She becomes much more of a background character, in my opinion, in season two than season one. There's some really good episodes. Like a lot of episode one, Breakaway, hinges on her. Like she's like
Yeah.
trying to figure out what's causing these astronauts to die, and so she's an important character. But I get what you're saying, and I think it's her portrayal, and it does change through season one because she is a. The thing, you know what bugs me the most about her character is she whispers everything. Like she whispers all the time, and I'm like, why? I don't know if it's supposed to be like she's being introspective or something, but like there are so many conversations she has with uh, Dr. Bergman or Commander Koenig or anything, and it's like I just feel like why is she whispering when everybody else is talking normally?
I didn't notice the whispering. I just didn't. I don't know what it was. I just could not really get into that character. I didn't know. I mean, again, I'm going off of just the first episode so far, and I really did get enamored with Professor Bergman, and so I was wanting more and more and more of him.
Yeah, yeah.
And I wasn't sure how important is he to the show. Is he somebody that's just kind of a side character? Is he really one of the main like focuses of the show? So and I'm looking forward to like getting more into the episodes to figure out just what happens. I hate to hear that he's not in the second season, but it sounds like the second season may not have played out very well for him, and I'd rather him not be on the show than be on the show and be ignored, because I think I'd be really angry at that point.
Yeah, and I will say that with the characters of Commander Koenig, Dr. Russell, and Professor Bergman, they're I would say they're trying to do another Star Trek trope is
Yes.
the trinity between Kirk, Spock, McCoy. Where
Yeah.
Spock is logic, McCoy is emotion, and Kirk synthesizes those two things together
Okay.
into decision. And they do, and I think they successfully do that. Although it's a slightly different dynamic. It's not like uh, I would say Professor Bergman is supposed to be the more Spock-like character, although he's not emotionless. That's the beauty of his character. He's very logical thinking, and he knows a lot, but he can reason well. That's the best thing. Dr. Russell is definitely supposed to be much more the McCoy-like character in that she's much more emotion-driven
Yeah.
than Koenig or Bergman, but not to the extent that McCoy is. McCoy is like he wears his feelings on his sleeve all the time. She's still a doctor and a scientist, and so she's still. And maybe that's the dichotomy that's like kind of rubbing you the wrong way, because she is supposed to be this like she does have this emotional side to her, but it's almost like she's keeping a lid on it all the time, like because she does almost come across emotionless sometimes.
Yeah, I can
Maybe that,
definitely see that.
yeah,
I don't
maybe
know.
that's the thing, is that and actually now that I'm talking about it, that might actually make her a more interesting character. Is that she does have this emotion. You see it a little bit, especially when she's talking when they're frustrated about being unable to find what the cause of this unknown disease that's killing these astronauts. Um, you kind of see that, but she still plays. Barbara Bain plays the character really, so it may be just the way Barbara Bain was interpreting the character, because she
Maybe
keeps
so.
a real lid on her all the time. Whereas if you'd have gotten a different actress to play that and play it more like a McCoy kind of character,
Okay.
it might have, maybe that would have, you would have liked the character more.
Yeah, I could almost see like some of these characters in there being in like a '70s Fantastic Four movie because she definitely would have been okay as Sue, just the look at
Oh
least.
yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I think that would be it would
Yeah,
be just
actually, now
something to
that you
think
mention it,
about.
I could see Martin Landau
Oh yeah,
as Reed Richards,
absolutely. It probably wouldn't have been terrible. It'd have been better than that one they tried.
the
That first one.
Fantastic.
Yeah, that was terrible,
Or are
man.
you talking about the Roger Corman?
Nah, the
Just,
Corman one that was
yeah,
terrible. I
yeah.
mean, they did their best, but I mean they knew the movie wasn't ever going to get made, so they just didn't care. So,
That's true. They were
um,
literally just making it so they didn't lose the rights to it.
yeah. So I mean, they put no effort into that. But yeah, I'm gonna tell you, like the that Simmons guy who's trying to force them to continue to do
Yeah.
all this
Oh
work.
yeah.
He's a very hateable dude, and
Well,
I'm not mad.
if you look at that actor, he was kind of typecast as playing villains.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I can see that because I mean, he just has that face of like he's up to no good.
Yeah. Yeah, because I was just looking him up. I want to say he had actually played the Sheriff of Nottingham in some BBC production of Robin
I
Hood.
can see it, and he would be great at it.
Yeah.
He's a very good actor. He was just his character was very hateable, and I thought that it was kind of unique the way that they just kind of threw all the heat on him. But I enjoyed that. I thought that was awesome.
Well, he is the he's kind of he plays the role of insufferable government bureaucrat perfectly.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
all he cares about is we got to launch the mission to Meta. We can worry about this other stuff later. This is the important thing. You get although I think I like he's not a straight up villain though. He's not just a straight up villain, but that's why I would think that's that's how I would describe him. He's not just the mustache twirling villain, although he does have the mustache twirling villain
He sure
look.
does.
Um, but his role in the show, and I think he feels it really. That actor played it really well. Is he's just an insufferable government bureaucrat.
Yeah,
He is like the head of the DMV is in charge of your moon base.
yeah,
You're
yeah.
gonna have to every minute of
I
it.
enjoyed his portrayal. I mean, it's almost like Alan Rickman in Harry Potter. Like when he's playing Snape, like you love the acting, but it's like God, that character is so terrible. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. I did enjoy the whole. Is it a virus? Is it radiation? We got to figure out
Yeah, yeah.
what's going on. And I thought it was wild. And I haven't. I'm assuming when they're on the moon and they're out of the moon base and they're walking around on the surface of the moon. I'm assuming all of that is in slow motion, or are the actors walking in slow motion to simulate the gravity
I'm
difference?
pretty sure they filmed those shots in slow motion.
Okay, 'cause I mean it was. I thought
Because if
that
you
was neat.
notice, the vehicles also move really slowly.
Very slow.
Like
Yeah,
the little moon buggy that they drive around in.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure they filmed all that in slow motion. And then, of course, the actors are doing this exaggerated walk
Yeah.
to. Um, that's the thing though. For a TV show in 1975, I mean, the scenes on the surface of the moon are totally believable. You're like they're
Oh,
moving
unreal.
right. I'm like, God, this is, they. I've seen shows that were filmed on much higher budgets for TV more recently that don't look this good. That's
No,
why
I
the production values of the show were amazing. Oh,
yeah.
before we get too far away from it, I do want to throw one thing in there about the actor who played Commissioner Simmons. His name is Roy Dotrice, or was. Unfortunately, he's passed on. but I know that you're a big collector of the kids' records, the storybooks with records,
Oh
like
yeah.
Peter Pan. We talked about that. He actually narrated the Little Mermaid for Disney, the storybook and record adaptation.
I mean, I would have never have bought that, but I may have to buy
Yeah,
that now.
I was just thinking, okay, I might need to look that up because yeah, it's the Little Mermaid from the 90s, the Disney
Yeah.
Renaissance. But yeah, he narrates the storybook on
Yeah, I'll have
record for
to.
Disney Records.
And I may have that already in like my Disney pile, because some of those I don't ever even look at. I just have them, and then like I sell those at like those resales and stuff. But
Because that's the thing. I want to hear that just because
yeah,
I just want to hear because he does have a really good, you know, I'm a bad guy voice.
yeah.
You know?
I bet it's on YouTube. I'll try to link that in the notes
Yeah, yeah.
as
So
well. And
I was
if I
just
find it,
looking
I'll
at his
send it to you.
Wikipedia page, and
That's
that
cool.
stood out to me. I thought he had played the sheriff of Nottingham, but I couldn't see that in his filmography, so I must be
Okay.
getting him confused with someone else. But I know I've seen him in a lot. If you look at his filmography, he's been in a ton of things that I have seen. He was actually in an episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation too.
Oh,
Later
that's
on.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I was digging through, because we were talking about that when I was digging through how the sets were made, the miniature sets and the full sets were made. That's when I came across that really cool article that I sent you, and I went down the rabbit hole of reading that whole article and just getting enamored by this guy saying how close they actually came to what a moon base would really need to be.
Hmm.
But yeah, you're right. Those, I mean, it is really cool to see them, and it seems. I can only imagine in the '70s, that had to seem like super real. But it's still that holds up better than a lot of things.
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. That's one thing I've never like rewatching it now in in the mid 2020s. The special effects in Space 1999 are, um, they literally hold up, you know, better than a lot of sci-fi shows now. Well, and another thing, they didn't have CGI, and I have become kind of I love good CGI. Don't get me wrong, and it does allow you to do things that sometimes would just be impossible to do. But if you can use physical props, physical things, I do think it adds a weight to the movie that's missing, or from the scenes that is missing from a lot of stuff now that's just over reliant on CGI.
yeah, I mean, I am not a huge CGI fan. I feel like, and again, I love all of the movies, but like I feel like there's such a difference in the original Star Wars when they were on sets and they were moving around actual touchable things versus where everything is a giant blue screen. And I think it's just a little bit more realistic. Like I can't imagine them doing Hoth and it not being sets.
Hmm.
I just think it would
Yeah.
be very different, and it gives a different feel. And I feel like it just seems, and again, because it seems more realistic.
Yeah.
It seems like you could actually reach out and touch it because, well, you can.
You
And
can. Yeah.
so when the the base is shaking and Han and Leia like fall against the walls are real, like they're there, as opposed to what it would probably look like with all blue screen. I think you would be able to tell that it's not as realistic and touchable. But again, I don't mind blue screen. You're right; it could definitely allow you to do some amazing things that you can't in a typical setting because some of those things are so out there. Um, I am also like, and it's I'm sure you could find similar chairs at IKEA, but the chairs that they sit
Oh
in
yeah.
are amazing.
I swear to God, their desks. I think I have seen the desks at IKEA with the little lamp. That little
Oh
metal
yeah,
lamp.
that lamp is awesome.
I swear, I honestly, I had never thought about it till you just said it. I'm like, I think IKEA decorated Moonbase Alpha. I
but
really do.
it's so good. I mean,
Yes.
there's just a scene when he's sitting there thinking with like I guess a cup of coffee in his hand, and it comes from behind him, and and you can hear like all the voices going on in his head, and it goes around to the other side of him like, yeah, I want that chair.
Yes. Yeah.
I have to have
There
that
is
chair.
something to that 70s aesthetic. I love it. You know, or
Yeah,
well, I wouldn't even say the 70s aesthetic. It's the 70s idea of the 90s aesthetic. That is cool. That is very cool.
yeah. I would love to find similar. I would love to find the original chairs, but I'm sure they'd be in terrible condition. But I would love to find either replicas of those chairs. But again, all of those shows. I mean, any of the shows. I would take Picard's chair. I would take Kirk's chair. I mean, any of the seats on the Falcon. I would love to have just as a chair in a room. Batman's chair. I mean, I'd have a whole house of just chairs to sit in for no reason. But
I've always wanted we in our den, we have gas logs at one end, and right now there's a little desk that Laura uses to build Legos on that's sitting in front of that. Well, if we ever get rid of that desk, and we've talked about getting rid of the desk and getting chairs to go there, just putting them in front of the log fireplace, the gas log fireplace. Secret dream of mine, and she would never let me do it, is I would love to get a replica of Kirk's chair and put it there. I would just sit there all the time. But
yeah, when I visited the Sherlock Holmes Museum in his room at 221B in London, there's like it's Watson's chair and it's Sherlock's chair, and there's like this little table in between, and that's always been. Again, don't let me win the lottery because, as they say, there will be signs.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, there will be. Yeah, there definitely
definitely.
will be. Yeah, I was. Yeah, I, I'm really glad you enjoyed it. You know, sometimes you share things like this with somebody who hasn't seen it, and you're concerned, oh well, they may not like it, or they may hate it. Which, I'll be honest, if you had hated it, that'd be fine. That's also would have been an interesting conversation, you know.
No, yeah, I mean, if you end up hating the Kindred, it's not gonna change my opinion of it, and it's not gonna hurt my feelings. It's something
Right.
that, I like and you don't, and that's okay. I mean,
Well,
it is, it is what it is.
yeah. I actually think, yeah, and I think that's a good segue into that. I think the next episode that we do should be talking about Kindred the Embraced episode 1. I did watch that. I have a lot of notes, uh, mainly, dealing with the fact that, now that I realize it was based on Vampire the Masquerade, which was a
Yeah,
role playing game that I'm familiar with, because I owned Rocket Comics back in the early 90s, and we sold a ton of Vampire the Masquerade and Werewolf the Apocalypse. So, yeah, I have a lot, and just the influence that this show clearly had on later things like Twilight. I mean, after this is a little preview, kind of our in a future episode. One thing I will say about Kindred the Embraced is I view it. It's literally feels in some ways, like a prototype Twilight.
I can. Yeah, I mean, it's definitely some of that in there for
Yeah,
certain.
yeah.
I
I don't
think
want to get
the
too much into it, but I
no,
do want to have a deep. I want to do a deep dive into that. Um, uh, maybe for our next episode.
yeah, I think for our next episode, because I mean, honestly, I'm looking at the clock, and we've already, if you count that time that we missed, we're probably over time. And I hate
Yeah.
that got deleted. That I don't understand what happened, but
Yeah, it's no problem. Just
yeah, I mean,
as long as people are aware, there's just going to be a little break in the show, and I think we probably retraced the ground that we missed, because.
we did.
Uh, but yeah,
I do.
I'm really glad you enjoyed Space 1999. I would maybe, I don't know if we should do another deep dive, like episode by episode, or maybe just do an episode where we talk about a couple of episodes.
Yeah, I don't know that we have to. I mean, now that we've, you know, talked about the show and the characters. I'm sure people don't want to hear a rehash of that every single time.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to finishing up with this. I'm looking forward to finishing up with Kindred, and I do like your idea of moving into like Super Friends at some point, because I think
Yeah.
that would be a lot of fun. And there's so many nostalgic tie-ins with that, from toys to
Oh yeah.
lunchboxes and everything
Yeah,
else. I mean, that'll
oh, yeah, that's one thing we didn't really talk about here is, although I've probably mentioned the Mattel Space 1999 Eagle out there 100 times, uh, they're they are remaking that and selling it on the Jerry Anderson website. They've actually already done it. They did a special edition one, and they sold out of those, but they are doing another run of them. I think it's called the Alpha Edition
yeah.
Eagle, and I'll be honest, I can't justify the expense of it, but that is one that it does tempt me. Although I will say, if anybody out there is interested in Space 1999 cool merchandise, definitely go to the Jerry Anderson website. They have tons of books that have been out of print for decades, that they've reformatted, like the making of Space 1999. Now I have a paperback copy from 1970s, but they've redone it, but it's now like an oversized hardcover. It's beautiful. I will probably end up buying that at some point. They have sales periodically. One of my favorite retro toy finds, I know I've shown it to you, is when I was a kid, I actually had the Space 1999 stun gun, water gun, as a water gun, and I loved it because it was fairly screen accurate for the time. For it had Space 1999 written on the side, which always annoyed me, um, but otherwise it was fairly screen accurate. It was a little water gun, and probably 5 or 6 years ago, uh, I forget where Laura and I were. We were at an antique mall. It might have been Grandma's Antiques in Walnut Cove, North Carolina, and I found one. They had in one of the booths. Somebody had one, and I bought it like immediately. It was in great shape. They were asking reasonable price for it. And so, because I do think the stun gun is one of the coolest sci-fi weapon designs ever, because it's that upside down U shape. So
Yeah.
it feels like it's something, again, the technology feels like it would work. So that's one of the coolest finds that yeah, that's one of my cool retro finds that I have, and I have it on
Yeah.
display in my comic room.
Yeah, as much as they're asking for the newer Eagles, I would rather just spend the money and get an original. But I'm an old school
I'll be
guy,
honest,
so
if you want, depending on the condition you want, buying an original one complete and in the box is more than they're asking for the new ones.
oh wow, okay. Well,
Yeah,
maybe not a complete in the box then.
yeah,
Just not
yeah.
a nice version of
To
it.
me, I would love to have it complete in the box. I at least want it complete.
Yeah,
That's
complete.
yeah, because the only problem with that is everything on that came apart. Like, you could take the pilot module off, and you could take the engine module off and join them together to make a smaller craft, like while it's landed. The doors, unfortunately, the plastic wasn't like the highest quality, so you find a lot of them where the doors are broken off or gone missing. The little engine nozzles that fit to the engine, they all come off. So it's really tough finding one complete. That's the problem with
That
those.
sounds like the Ghostbusters firehouse with all the
Yeah,
different pieces. So maybe
yeah,
you can. I mean, again, if we're at a yard sale or we're somewhere and they have one and it doesn't have all the stuff, but it's a really great price, you get it and you start collecting the pieces of over time, because I'm sure it's all out there
Actually,
somewhere.
I actually, not too long ago, I knew where there was one complete in the box. Um, we were watching. If anyone out there has never watched the Pod Stallions channel on YouTube, go check it out. Um, over his summer vacation in 2025, his family, they were doing a road trip, and he went to, of course, a lot of vintage toy stores during the vacation, and but this is in Canada, and he went to one toy store in particular, and it's another one of those scenarios we hate these, where he's looking around the toy store. He never even looks at it twice,
Oh,
but he keeps showing it in his footage as he's looking at other things. And so, but it was in a toy store, and they had it like, and it was, the box looked in beautiful condition. So I actually went to the website, and they actually do have it listed on their website for sale. And at the time, and they were asking like 750 Canadian dollars, which
okay.
after the exchange rate, that's actually not a, I think it worked out to like 400 and some dollars. And I was like, but what would it cost me to get it here? You know.
And then the shipping, like it's you
Yeah, the
have. I mean,
shipping, or
you'd have to pay
what am
for
I
some
gonna do?
special handling and shipping though,
Yeah, or
because
what am I gonna do? Fly there and get it? Pick it up.
yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
you know.
Again, man, I mean, all of those things. I mean, they're out there.
Oh
You
yeah.
just never know, and like you never know when you're going to meet the right person at the right time. I
Hmm.
mean, we're a little over time, but like I literally walked into that retro shop there on Robin Hood, and I was looking around. Just do they have a Cobra Commander for Cassandra? Because we were
Oh
different
yeah,
cars,
that was a great
and
find.
the guy, I go back to say goodbye to the owner, and he's back there. He's like, "Man, we have so much work to do. I just got this giant GI Joe haul, and I'm like, you don't have a Cobra Commander in there, do you?" He's like, "I actually do." He's like, "He's not in the best condition." I'm like, "I don't care." My wife doesn't care. He's like, "I don't have his gun." I'm like, "Don't care." And so, and he sold it to me for so cheap compared to what any other Cobra Commander is ever going to be. And
Yep.
then he's like, "Hey, if I happen to find a gun in this giant bag, and we'll put it to the side for you, and we'll give it to you when you come back in," because he knows her buying the Zartan from him, and so it's like, now I don't even know if there's any other figures that she wants.
Are you talking about Recollect?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
recollect.
Oh, see, I got to get back over there. I haven't been there for probably 2 years. The one time I did try to go there, and it's probably been a year ago now. Laura and I were over that way for some reason, and we went by there, but they were closed. So I have trouble hitting that guy when he's actually
Yeah,
there.
he's got. I mean, dude, it was. I mean, when I don't know when I sent you that text, like 7 o'clock at night or
Yeah,
something.
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, and he's open, which is not normal for a toy store
No,
to
yeah.
be open at that time of the evening at all. But yeah, I mean, you just sometimes you're right place, right time, and you pick up something, and you're like that, and it just happens to work out, and like we'll find it one day, and it's the joy of the hunt. I mean, because then there's going to be something else. Because every time I turn around, did I send you the superhero suckers?
No,
Did I send that?
you didn't send
I'll,
it.
I'll have to say it's just another thing. It's like great, another thing I've got to add to a list of things that I want, and to find these, it's going to take forever. And it would be so cool to have them all. But I'll send that to you when the show's over. But again, no, thanks to all the listeners, man. We really appreciate it. Please leave comments about what you'd like to hear us talk about because, I mean, we can sit here and blab all day long about just about
Yeah,
anything. But
yeah.
if there's specific things people want to hear about, and hopefully there's some Space 1999 people that see the title and click on it,
Yeah,
and
I'm gonna try to do a nice title card for YouTube
yeah,
with the eagle on it or something. And so I'm hoping we can. I hope we attract some viewers. We're getting a little traction with the podcast on YouTube. So I'm hoping that we can get it to take off. I am working on. I mentioned to you before. I am working on a couple of videos. I already have some ideas for uh, those advanced comics catalogs from the '90s. When I can get those, we should be seeing one another next weekend. Maybe we'll
don't
even.
look at the weather.
Well, I'm going to ignore it because if it, I've learned that if they're talking about weather more than a week away, it's not going to work. It's not going to work out
Yeah,
that way. But anyway, we'll see. We'll see how it goes. If we are able to get together, um, yeah, that'd be great. Maybe we might be able to record an episode in the same room.
that'd be kind of wild. All right, man.
That'd be cool. All right. Well, I hope everyone has a great week, and we will talk to you later.
All right, man. Take it easy, Mac. I'll get the recording to you soon.
Thanks. Bye.
All right, later.